This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com. Okay, welcome everyone. We have the pleasure of welcoming back Moshe Yoel and Yitzchak, who's here back giving us more zechusim for Ben Kesel La'aser. Also, we have the special pleasure of having my brother Yitzchak here. It's wonderful to have you. And Tzvi, it's good to have you as well, certainly. Right, Tzvi snuck right in there. It's good to have you. We now, as we're holding Ben Kesel La'aser doing the Aseres Meitzuvah, we do Cheshbon and Hanefesh Part 4. I'm sorry that we've had Orchis Chaim LaRosh on hold, but it's on hold for a good reason. Haftarah we read today, as you privileged me to read the Haftarah, they call Yazov Rasha Darkai, the wicked person should forsake his ways, V'ish Oven Machshavaisav, and the iniquitous person, the sinful person, his thoughts. So Hashem expects us to do tshuva not just on our way, but even on our thoughts. That's a big demand. Yazov Rasha Darkai v'ish oven machshavaisav, and the wicked person is thought. So when we make our calculation of our to-do better list for the Yom HaKadosh, and to put it in our mouser, we have to say, well, how am I doing in the arena of machshava? Now, it's the only religion that has such a thing. The Code of Hammurabi, for sure the Constitution of the United States, doesn't have any legislation about what we think. We can think it's a free country. We can say whatever we want. We should only think whatever we want. But not Yiddishkeit. In Yiddishkeit, for example, it says clearly, Lo sitar. You're not allowed to bear a grudge. It says, Lo sisna es achicha bilvavecha. You shouldn't hate your friend in your heart. Then we all know that bisimcha is the same letters as machshava. Because there's another part of machshava. And that is that when we do things, we should do them bisimcha. There's a famous story that they bring down that there was a non-religious person in Israel who Rabbi Yaakov met. And Rabbi Yaakov wasn't even sure he was a Jew. He met him in a cemetery. And he said, Rabbi Yaakov asked him, do you know anything about Yiddishkeit? And the person reeled off the pasuk, Tachas asher lovarta Hashem elkecha b'simcha v'tuv leiv meroiv kol. Rabbi Yaakov looked at him, this person, he didn't know how to daven, he didn't know how to say a kaddish, he didn't know what a kel mali is, and he reels off the pasuk of Tachas asher lovarta Hashem elkecha b'simcha v'tuv leiv meroiv kol. What's going on? Rabbi Yaakov says, how do you know that pasuk? So he says that he was in Auschwitz, and he was together with a man by the name of Rabbi Halberstam, the Klosemer Rebbe. And the Klosemer Rebbe, he says, whenever he was doing something in the quarry, he would say the pasuk, Tachas asher lo yavarta es Hashem elikecha b'simcha v'tuv leivav meroiv kol. And he said it so many times that, of course we know from the Teichacha, he said it so many times that the man knew it by heart. Part of our avodas Hashem is that our mind should be happy. Should be happy that we're davening. Should be happy that we have a 3-day Yom Tov and Shabbos. Right? It's part of avodas Hashem is ivdu Hashem b'simcha. It's in the mind. Of course, the mind also is the arena of purity, right? Where we're not supposed to think impure thoughts. Where our mind is a place where we're supposed to have the proper ahava for Hashem, ahava for each other, ahava for a spouse, right? To love. It says oyava kegufa. We should love our wife like ourselves. So we have to know that when we think about our preparations for Yom Kippur, we also have to include in it the arena of the mind. How are we doing with jealousy? Jealousy is rekavat sama's kina. Right? How are we doing with jealousy? Not only that, but there's another important point about the mind, and that is somebody asks you, how are you doing with anger? So you look at them in surprise and say, anger? Why, did you hear me get angry? Why would you ask me that question? How are you doing with anger? So, yeah, you don't get angry because you're married to a saint. You don't get angry because you're the boss at work, and if they get angry at you, then you fire them. So, of course, you don't get angry. But as Reb Elia Lapian says, did you put out the pilot light? I don't know. I don't know if anybody even remembers what a pilot light is. But it used to be that there used to be a little flame always burning, right, under the hood of the range, and from it lit the fire. If the pilot light was out, then you couldn't light the fire, right? So the Reevaluate Lapian would say often, are you working on putting out your pilot light of anger? Because if not, then if something, you wonder, here this guy is always a mild-mannered guy, and all of a sudden you hear him spewing out all kinds of nivel peh. I've seen this. What happened? Never saw this guy lose it. Yeah, you never saw him lose it because there was never a reason for him to lose it. But he never really worked on anger. He never really put out the pilot light. So that's also ish oven machshavoisav, our machshavas. We have to work on our mind. We have to work. Are we in control? Now, we were going through different parts of davening, and today I want to share with you. We all know there's a famous Gemara that tells us that upon the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, it's a Gemara in Saita Memtes Amid Beis, Miyayim Shecharav Beis Hamikdash Ein Yayim She'ein Bei Klala. There's no day that there's no curse, and V'Kol Yayim Kilasa Meruba Mechaver. Each day the curse gets worse. Ve'ala Alma Amayka Mekim. What keeps the world standing? What keeps the world around? A Kedusha de Sidra, the Kedusha of the Sidra, the Kedusha in order. V'am Omen Yesh Me Rabba Dagarata. And Omen Yesh Me Rabba, the Rabba says, the Omen Yesh Me Rabba said after an Agarata, as we will say today. So Rashi says in Masechta Saita, what's the Kedusha de Sidra? The Kedusha de Sidra is the Seder Kedusha shetiknu sheyu kol Yisrael oiskim batayra b'davar mu'at. All of Klal Yisrael. This is talking about the Kedusha of Ovolotzion, where we say the Kaddish, 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 and we say the translation of the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel. That's how you learn. You learn by saying the Kaddish, 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 and then you translate it in Aramaic. So everybody is in unison learning. So Rashi says, say the Kedusha shetiknu, sheyu kol Yisrael oiskim b'Torah b'davar mu'at. Everybody, even if they're running off to work, everybody is learning Torah. Sha'aymer kri asay v'targumai. We say it's kriya, we say Kaddish, 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 Baruch Kvod Hashem, and we say v'targumai, we say it's translation, that's learning. V'hein ka'oiskim b'Torah, and we're being Mekadosh Shem Shemayim Barabim. Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzvakos, Baruch Kvod Hashem, Yimloich Hashem. That fusion. V'hein ka'oiskim b'Torah, v'sheyesh kan Kedusha Hashem v'talmud Torah. V'chavivu. It's very desirable to Hashem. And not only that, and everybody is doing it together. Now, the Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh alone, we say, of course, in Kedusha, right? Shachris, Mincha, Daven and a Minyan, and we say Kaddish, Kaddish, Kaddish. And when we say Kaddish, 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 we raise ourselves up. Ein of Nesuas Lamata, Kaddish, Kaddish, Kaddish. So there's a famous Mishnah Brura If you want to look it up, it's in Siman Kuf Chaf Hey. This Mishnah Berurah quotes the mystical Sefer HaYechilos, a conversation with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Says the Mishnah Berurah. I'm reading this straight from the Mishnah Berurah, not from, one of Moshe Yoel's Svarim. Not that there's anything wrong with Moshe Yoel's Svarim. Not from one of Yitzchak's Svarim. I'm reading it straight from the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kuf Chaf Hey, Sif Katan Hey. When the Shulchan Aruch says, V'yesh Lisa Ha'inayim L'moram, you should raise your eye. It's interesting. Kadosh, it's interesting. There's a big machlokes if you should have your eyes closed or open. So the Taz says you should have them closed. The Berheitav says them like the Taz. The Sharei Tshuva says that that's also the opinion of the Arizal. And that's the opinion that the Mishnah Berurah starts with. Mishnah Berurah says that the Hainu Shiyu Segurais, your eyes closed, Avaloi Beinayim Psuchais. Because how could you look up to Hashem? You can't even look up to the sun. How can you look up to Hashem? However, many Achronim argue, because if your eyes are closed, what are you looking up for? Many Achronim argue, and he says the Mogen Gevurim sides with those Achronim. So if you have a specific minig, then do your specific minig. If you don't, it seems to be from the stemus of most of the poskim that you should keep your eyes closed. It's not safe to look, there's certain places that are not safe to look. But listen to what the Sefer HaYechilos says. It'll knock you, if you're wearing socks, it'll knock your socks off. So he says, Bruchim atem la'Hashem shamayim, blessed are you to Hashem shamayim v'yordei merkava. Im toimru v'tagidu lebanai, if you would tell my children, this is Hashem talking, Ma sha'ani oisa b'shoshem makdishim v'oimrim kadosh kadosh kadosh. You should know what I'm doing when you say kadosh kadosh kadosh. V'lamdu oisam, teach them shi'u'eineim nesuas l'maram. You should look up high, lebeis tefilosam, to where their tefillos are going to. V'noisim atzmam l'mala, they should lift themselves up. Kadosh kadosh. Ki ein li ano ba'olam. I don't have a greater pleasure in the world, ka'oisa shah, like at that moment, she'einayim nusuas be'einai, when their eyes are gazing at my eye, be'einai be'einayim, and my eye is looking lovingly back, ba'oisa shah, at that moment, we know that Yaakov's Dmus is one of the four that's on the Kisei HaKavod. I grab hold of my Kisei Kavod, b'demus Yaakov, the image of Yaakov, umechabka, I hug it, umenashka, I kiss it, umazkir zechusam, I remember their merit, umemar gulasam, and I usher in the gula, and that means also personal gula. So when you hear this, you give some thought to Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Now, in Ovalet Tzion, says the Rashi in the Masechta Saita, in Ovalet Tzion, we also translate it. So not only are we saying what the Malachim are saying, but we're getting the mitzvah of Talmud Torah B'Rabbim. That's why it's so important to stop and say it together with the Chazan, that you say it in unison, and you say Talmud Torah B'Rabbim. It's just not a yeshiva sheminig. Not that there's anything wrong with a yeshiva sheminig. Right? So what do we say? So I'll start from V'ato Kadosh, you, O Holy One, Yoshev Tehillas Yisrael. There are many explanations of this, but the simple one is you wait for the Tehillas. Yoshev means Amad V'yoshev ala Pesach, it means to wait. Yoshev Tehillas Yisrael, you wait for the Tehillas Yisrael. You cherish our praise more than the Malachim, because the Malachim don't have a Bechira. We do it with Bechira. We keep our tefillin on and we don't run out of shul, right? Yoshev Tehillas Yisrael, you're waiting. Now there is another explanation brought down by the Aruch HaShulchan that Yoshev, there's a malach that waits for the very last of the Tehillas Yisrael, and he makes out of it a crown and he puts it on the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's correct. There is another pshat, which is the Art Scrolls choice pshat, V'ata Kadosh Yoshev, you're enthroned on the top of Tilos Yisrael. That's your throne. Your throne is the Tilos Yisrael. Then the Malachim of Ekara Zel Zev Yamar, and we're going to see that Targum Yonissim and Azil says they don't just say, they call to each other, hey Barry. They don't just call to one another. They ask permission from one another. This is highlighting that one of the beauties of the Shira of the Malachim is it's all done in Shalom, Sim Gesund. It's all done with Achtos. Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzavakos, Melech Haaretz Kvadim. Now, why do we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh 3 times? Right, so people say, well, for emphasis, holy, holy, holy. So we translate from Targum Yonissim and Azil. O mekablin dain min dain. They accept permission one from another. Right? That's Vikara Zelzel. It's not just they call to one another. But O mekablin dain min dain. They accept permission from one another. Va'omrin. Kaddish b'shmei meroma ilah be'ishchinte. You're holy. B'shmei meroma in the high heavens. Ilah very high up. Be'ishchinte. The place of your Shechina. That's the first Kaddish. Kaddish in heaven. Second Kaddish, Kaddish al Ara, you're holy on the earth, Oivad Geverte, the work of your might. And then the third Kaddish is Kaddish la'olam u'la'olmei almaya, forever and ever. We said la'olam u'la'olmei almaya is Targum for lo'olam v'ed. So the 3 Kaddishes is Kaddish in heaven, Kaddish in earth, and Kaddish forever. We're saying this together, we're translating, we're doing both Kiddush Hashem Barabim, and we're doing Limit Torah Barabim, Hashem Tzavakos, Lord of Hosts, Malya Kol Ara Ziv Yikare. The whole world is full of your splendor, your glorious splendor. Now, we continue that Yecheskel says in the Nevuah, because we know this is what the Malachim are saying from the Yecheskel's Nevuah, Vatisaini ruach, I was lifted up by a wind. Va'eshma acharai, and I heard from behind me, Kil rash gadol, a voice with a great noise, a tumultuous noise. Baruch kavod Hashem imekayma. So then we translate it. Unitolasni rucha, a wind picked me up. V'shimis basrai, and I heard from behind me, Kol zia sagi, a very loud noise. The mishapchin va'amrin, that's praising. Brich Yekara da Hashem, blessed is the glory of Hashem. We don't know from where, can't get near that place, but may Aser Beishkinte, from the place of his Shechina. And then we finish off Hashem Yemleich Leilam V'ed, and we translate it. Hashem Malchusei, your reign, Ka'em, should stand La'olam U'La'olam Yomai. When we do that, that's the Kedusha de Sedra that the world rests on. Now it's no surprise that it's Torah, because after the destruction of the temple, Ein LaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Olamai Ela Dal Amis Shel Halacha B'Vad, Dal Amis of learning, and we know that the greatest of the great, the worst crime that even Misa is not mechaper, even Tshuva Yom Kippur and Yisurin is not mechaper until Misa is Chil Hashem. So the biggest thing is Kiddush Hashem. So when we fuse the two together, Kiddush Hashem and Limud HaTorah, and doing it in unison like the Malachim who give permission one to another, we don't step on each other's feet, we're davening with Achtos, that upholds the world. That upholds the world. And we should make sure to do this. We should make sure to give this thought and translate it in our mind that it should be Limud HaTorah. That's, for many, that will be the first Limud HaTorah of the day, besides what they say by Birchas HaTorah. So not only is Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh that we say in davening, when we lift up and we look up with our eyes closed, and Hashem looks lovingly down at us, and he says, when you say Kadosh, 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 there's nothing more precious to me, and I take the demus of Yaakov and the Kisei HaKavod, and I hug it, and I kiss it, and I think about your schusim, right? It's a way to get some pull in heaven. I think about your schusim and mamar gulasam, and then we say the Kaddish, Kedusha de Sidra, and as we'll say now also the Amen Yeishmei Rabba Da'agadita, which of course will include again Kiddush Shem Shemayim Barabim with the awesome declaration of Amen Yeishmei Rabba. In these schusim, we want to thank you all for coming. In these schusim, we should all be zeicha to a ksiva v'chasima toiva u'masuka.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.